My beloved child. Something shifted in silence before anyone even spoke. That is why this moment feels different from all the others you have tried to understand. There are conversations happening around your name that you never expected, and one of them has touched a heart more deeply than you realize. A friend sat beside your person and revealed something about your past that carried more weight than anyone imagined. It was not loud, and it was not dramatic, yet it reached straight into the hidden place where emotions are hardest to hide. At first, your person did not react. They listened quietly, almost pretending that the words meant nothing. But inside, every sentence was landing with unusual force. What they heard was not just information. It was a truth that suddenly connected pieces they had never fully understood before. The way you carried yourself, the pauses in your voice, the strength you show even when no one notices, those things began to make sense in a way they never had before. Do not skip, because something huge is waiting for you. What happened next was unexpected even for them. The room stayed ordinary, yet inside their thoughts everything changed. They began replaying memories of your words, your silences, the moments when you smiled while hiding what you truly felt. That truth about your past opened a door they had never entered before. Behind that door they saw a version of you that felt deeper, stronger, and more unforgettable. A strange silence followed after the friend finished speaking. Your person looked away for a moment, as if they needed distance from what they had just heard. But distance did not help. The truth stayed close, repeating itself in their mind. Suddenly, they understood that many things they once misunderstood about you were never weakness, never confusion, and never distance. They were signs of a story you carried quietly. Stay till the end, because this is where emotion becomes impossible to ignore. There was a moment when your person almost asked another question, but they stopped themselves. Why? Because they were already feeling too much. Sometimes a single truth creates more emotion than many explanations ever could, and that is exactly what happened here. Their heart became heavy, not with sadness alone, but with realization. They remembered something very specific, one small detail from a previous conversation with you. It seemed ordinary then, but now it returned with power. A phrase you once said, a hesitation in your voice, a look that lasted only seconds. Suddenly, that small moment became important, almost unforgettable. The friend's words had changed its meaning completely. What your person felt next surprised even them. It was not only concern, it was not only regret. It was a growing emotional pull they could not explain. Because once someone understands the hidden chapter behind another person's strength, admiration often becomes deeper than before. Do not skip. Something huge is waiting for you. They began wondering how much you had endured without speaking fully about it. They wondered how often you smiled while carrying memories no one could see. And the more they wondered, the more emotional they became. For a moment, they stayed quiet, because they feared saying the wrong thing. Some truths create silence before they create words, and this was one of those truths. Their friend noticed the reaction immediately and asked softly if they were okay. But your person only nodded, because they did not know how to explain what they were suddenly feeling inside. They were seeing you differently now, not as someone they simply knew, but as someone whose story had more depth than they had ever imagined. That realization touched them in a way they could not dismiss. Something rare happens when hidden truth meets genuine feeling. The heart becomes honest without permission. That honesty was beginning to rise inside them. They were no longer protecting themselves from emotion. They were beginning to feel it fully. Stay till the end, because one thought kept repeating in their mind. If this truth had been known earlier, many things might have unfolded differently. That thought alone carried weight and stayed with them longer than expected. While no one else noticed, their eyes changed and their expressions softened. Their voice became quieter. Because sometimes emotion does not arrive like a storm. It arrives like a slow realization that refuses to leave. What they heard about your past did not push them away. It pulled them closer inside their thoughts, closer than they expected. And this is only the beginning, because what they do with these feelings next has not yet fully unfolded. What happened after that silence was even more powerful than the first reaction, because your person did not leave that conversation unchanged. They carried every word with them, long after the friend stopped speaking. While everything around them looked normal, inside their thoughts, something had already begun to move in a new direction. They tried to act calm, but the truth they had just heard kept returning with greater force. One sentence in particular refused to leave their mind because it explained something they had questioned about you for a very long time. Suddenly, pieces that once seemed unrelated began connecting one after another, and each connection brought a deeper emotional response. Do not skip because something huge is waiting for you. Your person became unusually quiet, not because they had nothing to say, but because too many thoughts arrived at once. They remembered times when you remained composed, while others would have reacted differently. They remembered moments when your voice carried strength, even though there was hidden weight behind it. After hearing that truth, those memories felt completely different. There was a pause where they looked away again, almost as if they needed a private moment inside a public space. The friend noticed this and added one more detail, something small but powerful enough to change the entire emotional atmosphere. That extra detail made your person breathe differently. It was subtle, but it mattered. Stay till the end, because this next realization touched them deeply. They understood that much of what you never explained had meaning they failed to see before. And when understanding arrives late, emotion often arrives stronger. They began asking themselves why they never looked deeper before, why certain moments now seemed brighter in memory, why certain things you said now sounded more important than they did at the time. The truth about your past had not simply informed them. It had awakened a feeling they could no longer ignore. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next thought that entered their mind was unexpected even to them. They wondered whether you ever felt alone while carrying everything you carried. That thought stayed with them longer than anything else. It was not easy for them to shake it away. For the first time in a while, they felt an emotional pull that had no defense around it. It came quietly, but strongly, like something inside them had shifted without warning. No distraction worked anymore. No quick change of topic helped them escape it. Even when they tried to focus on other things, their mind kept returning to the same point again and again. Even after the conversation ended, your name stayed present in their thoughts with unusual intensity. It was not a passing thought. It felt stable, like it had settled deeper than before. They replayed one old moment where you smiled at something simple, something that once seemed small and forgettable. But now that memory felt completely different. That smile felt stronger in meaning, quieter in expression, almost brave in a way they had never fully understood before. Sometimes one truth can change how every memory is seen, and that is exactly what happened here. Everything they thought they understood started to shift in meaning. Moments from the past did not change, but the way they saw them did. Do not skip. Stay till the end. Something important is unfolding here, because later, when they were alone, the silence returned again. And this time it felt even more personal than before. Without anyone watching or interrupting, they admitted to themselves that what they heard had affected them more than they expected. There was no dramatic reaction, no sudden expression on the outside, only a deep emotional shift happening within them, slowly building and growing in quiet ways. They realized that your story carries a kind of strength many people would never notice at first glance. It is not loud, it does not demand attention, but it exists in a steady and powerful way. And strangely, that realization did not distance them from you. Instead, it increased their emotional connection. It made everything feel closer, more real, more meaningful. A once-in-a-lifetime kind of understanding started forming inside them. It was not something forced. It developed naturally as they kept thinking. The person they thought they already understood suddenly appeared more layered, more complex, with deeper parts still hidden beneath everything visible. That discovery created both tenderness and reflection in them. They even began questioning whether they had judged certain moments too quickly in the past. Things they once overlooked now felt important. Small interactions now carried weight they had not noticed before. Some memories felt unfinished, as if their meaning had been paused and now needed to be revisited again. It felt like they wanted to go back to those moments and understand them from the beginning with this new awareness. Stay till the end, because another truth is slowly taking shape. Your person is now looking at everything connected to you through a different emotional lens. Not because someone forced them to, but because what they learned has opened a door inside them that they cannot simply close again. Once something like this is seen, it stays, and before this feeling settles, another realization is beginning to rise inside them. It has not been spoken out loud, but it is growing stronger with every quiet moment they spend alone with their thoughts. Later than expected, another moment arrived that they could not ignore. The truth they heard earlier did not fade away with time. Instead, it became even stronger when they were finally alone. Sometimes emotions do not fully appear when others are around. They become real only in silence, when there is nothing left to distract the mind. That is exactly what happened here. The room was quiet, but their thoughts were not. Every word they heard earlier returned again, clearer than before, almost as if the conversation was repeating itself inside their mind. But this time, the emotional weight felt heavier. There was no distraction left between them and what they were beginning to understand about you. Only direct thoughts, one after another, building meaning slowly. Do not skip because something meaningful is unfolding. One memory rose above all the others. A moment where you stayed calm, even though something around you clearly felt difficult. At that time, they noticed it only briefly. It passed like a small detail in a larger moment. But now, after hearing the truth, that memory returned with completely new meaning. They realized that what looked simple on the surface had hidden depth all along. Nothing about it was as ordinary as they once thought. That realization created a stillness in them so deep that they stopped what they were doing completely. They were not confused. They were becoming aware. There are moments when understanding arrives late, but still changes everything. And this became one of those moments. Stay till the end, because another powerful thought began to form inside them. They started wondering how many things you never said out loud because you chose strength instead of explanation. That thought did not leave them quickly. It stayed and grew heavier the more they reflected on it. They remembered how you once changed the subject when something personal came too close to being revealed. At the time, it seemed normal, almost unimportant. But now it felt significant, like a silent message they had not understood before. Suddenly they realized that silence itself had been speaking. It was just that no one had been listening carefully enough. Something deeper began to form in their understanding. What affected them most was not only the truth they heard, but the realization of how gracefully you carried your past without asking anyone to feel sorry for you. That kind of quiet strength moved them deeply, in a way they could not easily explain. For a while, they tried to distract themselves again, but every attempt failed. Your presence in their thoughts had become stronger than usual. The emotional weight was not loud or dramatic. It was steady, calm, and impossible to ignore. It kept growing in quiet but powerful ways. Do not skip, stay till the end. Something important is still unfolding. Because then came another realization. They felt respect rising inside them, where confusion once existed. And with that respect came something even deeper, a kind of tenderness they did not expect to feel so strongly. They began seeing your past not as something distant or disconnected, but as something that shaped the person standing in front of them today. Every strong quality they admired suddenly felt connected to experiences they had never fully understood before. One sentence from a friend kept returning to their mind. Each time it returned, it felt stronger than before. Not because the words changed, but because they were now hearing them with emotion instead of logic alone. They started wondering whether you even realize how much your quiet resilience speaks for you, even when you say very little. They wondered if anyone has truly recognized what you have overcome without you ever asking for recognition. That question alone shifted their entire emotional state. Stay till the end because another emotional change happened inside them without warning. They began feeling a protective instinct forming quietly. Not loud, not dramatic, but deep and steady. It surprised them because it did not come from logic. It came naturally, as if understanding you had created it on its own. A once-in-a-lifetime kind of emotional clarity was forming. They could no longer look at your story casually or see it as something ordinary. It had become personal inside their heart, something they felt rather than just thought about. And before they could speak differently, before they could act differently, before they could reveal anything openly, one final thought kept building inside them. Perhaps the truth about your past has only just begun to awaken what they truly feel now. There came a moment when they could no longer keep this feeling in the background. The truth they had learned had reached a point where silence itself felt full of emotion. It was no longer empty. It was carrying meaning. What began as quiet reflection was turning into something more serious, more personal, and much harder to ignore or hide. They found themselves returning to one question again and again. How did you remain so steady while carrying experiences that could have changed anyone completely? That question was not simple curiosity. It came from real emotional impact. The more they thought about it, the more they realized your strength had always been visible, but its meaning had remained hidden until now. Do not skip because something important is still unfolding. The next shift happened during an ordinary moment. They heard your name again in another conversation, and instantly their attention changed. What once might have passed without notice now felt important. Even hearing your name carried emotional weight now, because everything felt connected differently after the truth they learned. It all linked together in their mind in a new way. They remembered another detail from your past that a friend had mentioned earlier, and this time it hit harder than before. It was not only the truth itself, but what it explained. Your patience, your calm reactions, even your distance in certain moments. What once looked like mystery now looked like quiet endurance. Stay till the end, because this realization created something rare inside them. They began to understand how much depth had been hidden behind your silence all along. And once someone truly sees depth, they cannot return to only seeing the surface again. Something important was forming in them now. For the first time, they imagined what your hardest days might have felt like, when no one truly understood what you were carrying inside. That imagination created a softness in them they could not control. It was not pity. It was something deeper, a mix of respect and emotion that changed the way they viewed everything about you. Maybe your strongest qualities were born from chapters you never fully explained. That thought changed everything for them. It reshaped how they saw your presence, your silence, and your strength. Do not skip. Stay till the end. Because now, nothing feels the same for them anymore. Something huge is waiting for you, because now another memory has returned. It is the kind of memory that does not come back loudly, but slowly, as if it was always there waiting for the right moment. In this memory, you remained kind at a time when most people would have withdrawn completely. You did not react with anger, and you did not close yourself off. You stayed steady, even when the situation made it easier to pull away. Back then, people noticed your behavior, but they did not fully understand it. It was only later, when time gave them distance and clarity, that they finally saw what it meant. That understanding made the memories stronger than before, almost impossible to forget. It stayed with them longer than expected, as if it had found a place in their mind that would not close again. They slowly became aware that everything calm about you was not empty or simple. It was layered with experience and meaning. Even your silence, even the pauses when you did not speak, started to feel different in their memory. What once looked ordinary now felt intentional, as if every small detail was carrying something deeper underneath. For a while, they did not share these thoughts with anyone. They kept them inside, turning them over quietly in their own mind. But internally, they were admitting something important. The truth about your past and your behavior had not made their feelings weaker. It had made their emotional connections stronger. That realization surprised them because it was not what they expected to feel. They had assumed that distance or understanding might reduce emotional intensity, but instead, it did the opposite. It created a deeper sense of respect and emotional attention. That honesty unsettled them slightly, because it revealed a reaction they could not fully control or explain. They also began to understand something else. Some people speak loudly just to be understood in the moment, while others carry truths so quietly that they are only recognized later, when time finally reveals their depth. In their mind, you now belong to that second group. The kind of person whose meaning is not immediate, but becomes clearer over time. And so they kept thinking about you more than they intended to. A quiet shift started forming inside them. It was not sudden, but it was steady. They began to feel that your quiet strength deserved more recognition than it had ever received. That thought stayed with them, even when they tried to focus on other things. Through the day, through silence, and even through ordinary distractions, that realization did not leave their mind. It kept returning, each time with more weight and more clarity. What started as a small reflection slowly turned into something much deeper, something closer to emotional understanding than simple observation. A kind of emotional clarity began to grow inside them, the kind that does not appear often. It mixed admiration with reflection in a way that made it difficult to separate what they felt from what they understood. Your story was no longer something distant or unrelated to them. It started to feel personal in a quiet, unspoken way. Without saying it openly, they were reaching a point of realization. What they felt was no longer temporary or passing. It was becoming something steady, something that stayed even after their attention moved elsewhere. It was no longer easy for them to ignore it or push it aside. What began as a simple emotional reaction slowly turned into a turning point inside them. The truth they heard about your past did not fade after the conversation ended. Instead, it stayed with them and continued to grow in importance. Each time they remembered it, it felt a little stronger than before. Some truths do not disappear once they are heard. They settle quietly into the mind and begin changing the way a person feels from within. This was one of those truths. It did not leave, it stayed, and it kept reshaping how they saw you. Now they started noticing small details about you that they had ignored before. The way you respond gently, even when life feels heavy. The way you remain thoughtful, even when others do not fully understand what you are carrying. These were no longer small or unnoticed things. They became meaningful in a new way. Each detail started connecting to everything else they had learned. And that connection created a stronger emotional shift inside them. It was no longer just admiration. It was something deeper, something more reflective and personal. Do not rush past this, because something important is unfolding here. At one point, a surprising moment came when they realized they had been replaying your voice in their mind, without even trying to. It was not intentional, it simply happened on its own, as if their memory had chosen to hold on to it. Certain words you once spoke now sound completely different to them. Before, they seemed simple. Now, they feel layered with meaning. They finally understand the quiet strength behind those words, and that understanding has created a sense of respect that is difficult for them to explain in simple terms. This respect is not built from a single moment. It is built from everything they have started to notice together. Every small truth, every quiet action, every memory that has now taken on new meaning. It all forms a bigger picture of who you are in their mind. They are beginning to see that your past did not weaken you. Instead, it shaped a rare kind of strength. A kind of strength that is not always recognized immediately, but becomes clear over time when someone looks closely enough. Another thought slowly entered their mind. They began to wonder how often you had to stay strong without anyone around you truly knowing what you were carrying. That thought stayed with them longer than expected, because it made them realize how much might have gone unseen. It also made them feel a deeper sense of understanding toward you. Not in a loud or dramatic way, but in a quiet and steady way that keeps growing. Something huge is still waiting in this realization, because now their emotions are becoming harder to dismiss. Even when they try to focus on other things, their mind returns to you. And each time it returns, it brings more clarity, more reflection, and more emotional weight. It is no longer just a passing thought. It is becoming a pattern in their awareness. They remember a moment when you smiled during a difficult conversation. At the time, it looked simple and easy to overlook. But now, that moment feels very different. It feels meaningful in a way they did not understand before. They now realize that some smiles carry hidden stories. Stories that are not spoken out loud, but are felt deeply by the person who lived them. That realization makes your presence feel more significant in their heart than it did before. Do not skip this moment, because something important is still unfolding. The biggest shift is this. They are no longer separating your past from who you are now. They are starting to see them as one continuous story that shaped your entire presence. Every hidden chapter of your life now feels like it contributed to the person they cannot stop thinking about. Nothing feels disconnected anymore. Everything feels connected in a way that makes their understanding deeper and more complete. A strong emotional awareness has started forming inside them. It is not silent anymore. Even if they have not fully spoken it out loud, they feel it clearly and consistently. It is present in the way they think about you and in the way they remember you. At the same time, a quiet regret has begun to grow inside them. It is not regret caused by something wrong they did. It is the regret of not understanding sooner. The realization that they did not see your depth earlier, even though it was always there. Sometimes people only recognize depth when truth arrives late. And when that happens, even old memories start to look different. Every moment they shared with you now feels like it has a second meaning that was not visible at first. Now even ordinary details connected to you feel important. A message you sent, a phrase you once used, even a short silence between conversations. Everything carries more emotional weight now because their perspective has changed. Stay with this moment because one final realization is forming. Your story has awakened something sincere inside them, something deeper than temporary emotion, something that does not fade easily once it has started. And because of that, the next time they think of you, it will not feel casual anymore. It will feel intentional. It will carry understanding, emotional depth, and a sense of clarity that was not there before. What they learned about your past did not close anything between them. Instead, it opened something new inside their mind and heart. Something that is still growing, still forming, and still becoming clearer with every passing moment. And as this continues, it is quietly moving toward a point where it may no longer be easy for them to hide what they feel or ignore what they understand.